No code, low code. In this video, I want to talk about no code and low code, and did it hit the mark that it was meant to do? Or, as I think, it's actually one, but in a different area than it was originally intended. All right, let's jump in to see what low code is. Low code or no code is an application development method that elevates coding from text to visual. Rather than a technical coding environment, low code operates in a model-driven drag and drop interface. All development skill levels, professional developers, novice developers, subject matter experts, business stakeholders, and decision makers can use low no code to build value-driven enterprise applications. Now, the way I would summarize this is essentially that what they were trying to do with the low code, no code is make what's called a citizen developer. And what that means is rather than always going to IT to get something written or going to the change request process or try and get budget from IT, you're trying to empower the full organization to be able to write their own technology pieces because they're the ones who know the problem and create these citizen developers. So that was the original intent of low no code. So what I want to explore in this video is, did it actually do that, or has it actually solved a different problem? So before we jump so much further, I want to give a few examples of what low no code can do. And here's a couple from Zapier, which is a very popular low no code platform. So shared Google Form responses in a Slack channel. What this means is if a Google Form has got a response, it will then connect to Slack and then post that message into a channel. Now, this doesn't sound like too much, but if you've got a survey out there and you're getting responses and the Slack channel comes in, people watch the Slack channel more than they'll watch the Google Doc that sits behind it. Therefore, when the survey responses come in, maybe that triggers someone to do something from there, or they can get a bit of feedback on what they're doing. Another simple one is get a digest of 0 sales invoices sent to your Gmail on a daily, weekly, or monthly schedule. This one is really good for, say, a leadership or a business owner. They don't want to log into Xero every day or every week, but they're obviously on their emails. So what they want to do is get a list of sales from their business and shows, maybe summary of sales, aggregation of sales, whatever that might be, into their email box. Again, here we can do, rather than going to a developer to write a report that's then emailed out, you can simply hook together a Xero email zap, and that low code, no code is going to be triggered on a schedule to send this overall summary to the business owner. Business owner then has these good updates around sales rather than having to ask someone in the office to send it to them. All right, so now we know sort of what low no code is and what it was intended to do and some of the examples. Let's have a look at some of the differences between the low code approach and a normal professional development approach. So in a no code environment, you've got a simple visual environment, limited customizations and integrations, and not suited for legacy system overhauls. Whereas in a high code traditional development, you've got specialized skill sets with a small talent pool, time intensive and costly, and you need to develop separately for mobile, web, and different operating systems. You can see here what the no low code problem was trying to solve. Essentially, building software is complex. It's difficult, it takes a long time, there's a limited amount of talent, and also you've got to get those problems from the business to technology, which then ends up having a bit of a gap, and therefore you have problems where there's change requests or issues. So what you try and do is take that technology and put it in the hands of the business, and therefore they can code up their own tools. Sounds simple and straightforward, does it? Well, I don't think it's quite worked that way. And this is where I want to understand. I came across an article that really summarized this, I think, really well, and I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from it because I think it summarizes it great. The misunderstanding at the heart of low code. The reality is that many low code solutions present a fundamental misunderstanding of software development. They conflate the challenge of understanding programming languages syntax with the challenge of designing effective application logic. Programming languages are just tools. Their syntax is merely a means of expressing solutions. True heart of software development lies in problem solving, in crafting algorithms, data structures, and interfaces that efficiently fulfill the application's needs. By aiming to simplify software development through a graphical user interface, low-code solutions replace syntax without necessarily simplifying the fundamental challenge of designing robust applications. This approach can introduce multiple drawbacks while failing to alleviate the true complexities of software creation, ultimately having a negative impact on your team's ability to deliver real value. So I'm going to sort of say this in a different way, but that has captured it really well in my eyes. Software programming, or actually the art of writing code, is a tool, usually using a shovel or a rake. That is a tool. An even better way is, say, an excavator. An excavator is a tool that can move dirt. You can obviously move dirt in such a way, but it's how you operate those tools and how you solve the problem that actually matters. Programming, and I say this to many people who come to me and ask how to learn programming, programming is really a mindset. It's really how you look at a problem, it's how you break it down to smaller sections, and it's how you make it so it's an algorithm. And that is a step-by-step repeatable basis on how things can be achieved. I've said this time and time again in my career. If you are to ask someone in operations how something is done, the way they describe it to you is generally very flaky. It's not their fault, it's just inherently the human mind can actually process things without you even knowing it. So they'll do calculations, or they'll do steps, or they'll move things, or they'll run something without even actually realizing because they're on autopilot. Whereas in an algorithm, you have to very clearly step out. If this happens, then this happens. Otherwise, this happens. And you've got to work that fork all the way down. And this way of thinking is actually what a programmer does. They take that business problem and they try and work out what the solution is. And that solution can be written in any language, because that's just a tool. But it's that thought process that's actually the important part. And low no code doesn't get around this. That problem still exists at heart. And this is why a lot of these citizen developers have struggled. Because when they've gone into these situations and say, I want to get a Google form and send it to Slack, it's a very easy use case. But what happens when you want to add in some different situations? Like what if validations fail on the form? Or what if, based on a certain answer, you want to send a certain email? You're having to map out all these flows and actually problem solve and work out what's going on. And that's the level where the problems start to deviate. And this is where these tools fall down. So rather than solving the problem, which is actually the developer coding syntax issue, which is what these low-code, no-code problems have solved, I want to show you what I think it's actually solved. And it's actually funny because here at Flying Donkey, we use them for this same purpose as well. Again, back to the same article, recent trends present an alternative approach. Given the challenges presented above, the value of low-code solutions further erodes with the continued proliferation of code libraries and frameworks for nearly every conceivable use case. Consider the frameworks like Next.js, Nitrix, or platforms like Superbase and Vercel. These newer developer-focused tools are often more productive than their low-code equivalents, and they certainly make the resulting applications far more future-proof. So what's happening here is two things. One is, on the developer side, there's more and more libraries coming to market that make actual syntax less and less important. And the reason for that is because they're always out there trying to push the developer closer to the user and closer to the problem. While at the same time, what's actually happened here is, and what we use at Flying Donkey for, we actually use some of these low-code, no-code platforms to plug the gaps in easy-to-solve problems. So once that thinking has been done that I just mentioned, and we've worked out some of those criteria, we can sometimes use those low no-code platforms by developers to plug 3 or 4 gaps. Let's say you need to send an email or you need to hook to an API. Those things are relatively good for a low-code, no-code platform to hit into. But the complexity around the other use cases won't be done. So what we end up doing is, for the parts that are easy for a no-code platform to do, we do those 3 or 4 parts of the no-code platform. There are 3 or 4 parts a bit more complex, we do them custom. What that means is we're getting the best of both worlds. Now, the big difference here is that the citizen developer I talked about before, which is an SME or someone in the business, is not the person driving this. The developer is actually the one using these tools to help them expedite their workflow. And this is what I really wanted to get across in this video. I think no and low code platforms definitely have their place. We use them very much here at Flying Donkey, and we're actually a make partner. But I think the audience was wrong. They tried to push it towards SMEs and end users of the business, when in fact the real problem here was the actual problem-solving aspect of the problem. Programmers have this, and if you can actually equip them with better tools to solve these problems faster, their mindset they already have and how they approach problems is what's going to enable them to solve them faster. So in the end, I think it's actually a hybrid approach. I don't think it's going to be an all or nothing win. I don't think no and low code tools will take over and replace developers. Quite on the contrary, I think developers will start using these tools alongside their existing tool set to develop solutions better and faster and move them away from doing more cookie cutter code that they get bored with easily anyway. Like I mentioned before, they can hook up to an email sending piece or hook into Slack fairly easily, but the complexity and logic behind that, they can then code themselves. That's actually why we use a program called Make here at Flying Donkey, because not only does it have those pre-done modules, but also has a very easy way for us to add in custom code modules. So when our developers are actually building products in Make or integrating things together, if some of the flow doesn't work, they can actually code in the problem that they need in custom code. Therefore, we can actually finish the flow rather than leaving it at 95% complete. All right, so quickly to summarize, did low and no code miss the mark? Well, look, technically they did, because essentially they were trying to make a very vast army of citizen developers. I think that's going to be the case. I think they've found their mark by helping developers and adding another toolkit to their arsenal, and they're going to help them solve those problems. The real issue here is taking those business problems and turning them into program solutions. That is something that an SME or a non-programmer generally struggles with. It's not the syntax that is the issue. The syntax is just a byproduct of that. That's a way to illustrate that problem. By putting these low and no code solutions in the hands of developers, you're actually expediting their way to deliver products, and it is bringing products to market faster. I think they're here to stay. We use them extensively at Flying Donkey, and we've also helped a number of clients implement them in their practice. If you're interested in more low or no code solutions in your business, or you're trying to get stuff to market faster with those sort of solutions, feel free to reach out here at Flying Donkey, and we'll be happy to help.